The lesson outcome for this video is I can graph quadratics by using the quadratic formula, and that is going to be done in order for us to find the x-intercepts. So again, we've seen this before when we've factored to graph, but this time we are going to use the quadratic formula because if you look at this quadratic equation here, you'll notice that it is not factorable. Again, if we looked at that c value, the only factors of negative 13 are 1 and negative 13, or negative 1 and positive 13. Neither of those will get us to 8 for our middle term. So we're going to use the quadratic formula. Let's remember that this is a, the 1 right here, b is negative 8, and c is negative 13. It's best to keep these in mind and even write them out sometimes to make sure you're on the right track. Alright, so the quadratic formula again we've been using, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a, and we'll fill it in with our a, b, and c value. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8, because that's the b value, squared, minus 4 times the a value times the c value, all divided by 2 times the a value. That's a 1, not a 4. There we go. X equals negative 8 is positive 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared is going to be positive 64. Remember that number is always going to be positive. Notice we have a negative here, a positive value, and a negative value. A negative times a negative will be positive, so we'll put a plus here. And 4 times 1 is 4 times 13 is 52. All divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. X equals 8 plus or minus the square root of, that will be 116, all divided by 2. X equals 8 plus or minus, our rounded answer here would be 10.770, all divided by 2. And I'll come up here to finish. So we've got x equals 8 plus 10.770, all divided by 2. Or we have x equals 8 minus 10.770 divided by 2. And we'll simplify both of those. This first one will be x equals, remember to add the 8 plus 10.770, hit enter, and then divide by 2. You're going to get 9.385. And down here, 8 minus 10.770, and then hit enter, and divide that by 2, and we get negative 1.385. Alright, now let's remember that when we have our 2x values after the quadratic formula, what we have found is the x value when a 0 has been put in for y. So if we come down here, we see a 0 put in for y in our table of values, which means our 2x values are going to go in here and here with a y value of 0. So the first one was 9.385, and the second one's negative 1.385. Now, you might be wondering about how we would plot these on the coordinate plane. Well, we're going to estimate. Okay, we're going to look at this number. It's 9.385. Well, that's greater than 9, but it's less than 9.5, which would be 9.5. So that's where we'll plot that point, at 9.385. So let's go to the right. On the x-axis, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just making sure we got 10 here. 9, and again, not quite to 9.5. So I'm going to put a point right about there. And then we have negative 1.385. Now let's think about that one. That's, again, smaller than negative 1, but it's not quite to negative 1.5. So that is going to be at negative 1.385, right So we know those are our two x-intercepts of our parabola, and in order to graph this parabola, we are going to find it looks like 4 more values here. So we can plot these 4 points. Remember how you do this, you can use any x value you want to. I'm actually going to change this table because these values do not work. So if you are jumping ahead, I apologize, try to stick with me. These values aren't good choices, so let's make some better choices here. Okay, so let's use these 3 values for now. Go ahead and, again, plug -2 in for the x's in the equation and find what the output would be for y. Then plug 10 in for the x's and find out your output for y, and then do the same thing with 0. Check back to see if you use your calculator accurately or if you did the mental math correctly, if you do it that way, with those 3 values for x. Okay, so what you should have got is 7, and then 7, and then -13. And the -13 will be slightly off of our graph on that. So let's go ahead and plot these. Those are the 3 values you should have got for y if you inputted these 3 values for x using your calculator. So let's plot -2, 7. So -2, 7 is right about here. I need that. And then we have 10, 7 as well. So way over here on the right, 10, 7 will be this point right here. And then 0, -13. Again, this will be a little bit off the graph. 0, -13 will be somewhere right down in here. So what we do not have here, and you might not be able to tell this, well, you probably should be able to tell, we don't have the vertex shown. The vertex is actually going to be way, way, way down here. Way down there somewhere. In fact, it's actually at 4, -29. So way down there at 4, -29. Way down there. So the parabola is very difficult to draw in this first example, but we do know it's going to curve something like this down, and then it's going to come back up off this, oops, that's not very good. It's going to come back up through this side, going upward like so. Okay, and again, the vertex will be way down there somewhere. All right, let's take a look at another one. Okay, so this second example is going to fit on our coordinate plane better, and we're going to go ahead and do the same type of thing we did on the previous one. We're going to find our x-intercepts, and then we're going to complete the table and graph our parabola. So let's start by listing our values of a, b, and c. Okay, hopefully you listed those already. Here we go, -1, 2, and +1. All right, did you notice that this parabola starts with a negative a value right here, -1? We've talked a little bit about what that means. That will mean that this parabola will be doing what? Do you remember? Well, it will be opening downward. So the parabola will be kind of facing downward like that, the arrows. All right, so let's go ahead and put those values into our quadratic formula and solve for x when y is 0. Feel free to work ahead of me a little bit, trying to see if you can do this without any assistance. Just check that you are doing it right as we go. All right, how are you guys doing? We should have x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of 8, all divided by -2. so there's our two that we need to compute there. Go ahead and do those. And they should be x equals, let's undo that, negative 0.414 and 2.414. So again, these are our two x values when y is 0. They are our x-intercepts. So we're going to put negative 0.414, comma 0, and 2.414, comma 0. Go ahead and fill in the rest of this table again. Put a value of x in, for example 0 in here and here as well. Simplify that and find your value for y. And do that for these four. They do all fit on the graph. And then check back to see that you have those four correct. Okay, so let's go ahead and plot all of these points and check to see how our parabola looks. So the first one's negative 0.414, comma 0. Now again, that's less than 0, but it's not all the way to negative 1/2. It's close to negative 1/2. Again, not negative 1. All right, so negative 0.414 would probably be somewhere in here. Again, just the best estimate we can do, especially if we make that dot a little bit bigger. It's obviously somewhere on the correct point there. And then 2.414, which is just shy of 2.5. So 2.5. Oh, should be a little shy of that. That looks pretty good. Then we have 0, comma 1. 0, 1 is here. It's a little bit off there. We have 1, comma 2. And we have 2, comma 1. And lastly, we have 3, comma negative 2. All right, so we can again see our parabola taking shape here, like so. All right, that's all for this lesson. We'll talk about how to use the vertex in the next lesson.